나무 묘호랭개교 나무 묘호랭개교 나무 묘호랭개교 Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. It has been a morning. It's no longer morning. Woo! I have been, as I told you in the last video, I was going to try to hook up my XL1 Canon video camera as an auxiliary camera here. Anyway, long story short, nightmare. Anyway, there's a long road and money ahead for the live broadcast thing. I'm working on it. I am, and I'm keeping as much money as I can in the coffers to get the equipment I'll need. I'm researching. I'm trying things. Sometimes cutting corners is excellent. Sometimes cutting corners, it did no work. So that's where I am today. This microphone is in the shot, but I'm just going to leave it like that for today. I have been, reading a lot of scholarship lately. It's been Jacqueline Stone, and she's going over a lot of the same things that I did when I read from the Gosho Zenshu. Over 300 videos on those. And I've got on order, they're having a heck of a time getting here, but I've got some from the Tenshu. Oh my goodness. I'm so bad with remembering things of late. Long term, okay, but anyway, Nichiren Shu has its own organizations that it ascribes to and works with for translations, and they also have translations. Most of the same Goshos that I already went over with you, but some others. And so I'm trying to collect all of that so I can do a series from their translators and translations. And there may be some interesting nuances in that. So, yeah, not done reading Gosho, but that's okay. That's our practice. So, this is a book that I put together on my bookstore, but it's been put together several times by different people over the years. Many scholars say that these writings didn't appear until 300 years after Nichiren passed away. So there's no original document, or there are fragments of original documents. You probably have heard from time to time of the Angi Kuden. And certainly if you've ever practiced with Nichiren Shoshu or its lay organizations, they invest a lot in this particular writing, which some say is by Nikko, others say is, like I said, 300 years after Nichiren's death. Some say it was contemporaneous with it. There's a lot of argumentation, and we've talked about this before. There's a lot of hidden agendas and political agendas and so on and so forth. It is really sad that gets in the way of our practice and just the amazing doctrine of Shakyamuni, and then scholars like Chi-E and Dengyo and Nichiren. It's really sad, but we can't let that get in our way, right? The clarity of the teachings are there. We simply need to be able to not identify with the persons and practice the law. That's what we're always admonished to do, right? So let's do that. That's certainly what I try to do, and that's the main reason why I started this channel. is to try to, take a machete to all that extra baloney and politics and opinions, and let's just get down to what is the truth of the teachings. So, I have this copy of the Angikuden, and I think it's interesting for scholarship. In case you don't know, I should say to you that the Angikuden is purported to be teachings that Nichiren shared with his intimate group of disciples, of which there were 6. Historically, everyone agrees with that. And that he transmitted his own experiences and his thoughts about Shakyamuni, the Lotus Sutra, and therefore the substantiation, if you will, of his teachings to his disciples, such that they would understand deeply why Nichiren taught in the way that he did, and lauded the Lotus Sutra as the preeminent way to attain Buddhahood in this latter age, which is, simply mirroring what Shakyamuni said all along, and certainly Chi-I's scholarship, right? Now, Chi-I was, some 600 years before Nichiren. So it's hard to imagine, I've been alive about 65 years almost now, and people will say, 50 years ago, and I hear that number 50 years ago, and I find myself wondering, what does that mean, 50 years ago? I know a lot of people who haven't been alive that long. But then I think, man, that was the 70s. That's when I was into disco. Yikes, disco. Well, its resurgence has come up several times since then, so it's not that far away. But, when you think about your past, I would think about my past, and it doesn't have to be 50 years. It could be 20 years. And I think about, you think about situations you were in or things that you did, right? We all do that. But then you think about your mindset when some particular thing happened or when you did some particular thing. And some things seem familiar, but some things seem like, wow. And what do we say? I was such a different person back then, right? And it's the truth. I mean, as Buddhists, we know we were actually a different human being that time ago, because birth, death, birth, death, birth, death, birth, death. We're constantly changing and reinstantiating, and stuff gets sloughed off and new stuff gets put in, influence, right? That's why we want to chant as much as we can, because with every daimoku, we instantiate our potential perfection. Every cell in our body is, you could say, born or birth, because birth, death, born in that daimoku. So it has its maximal potential at work, and that inertia drives our life forward. So yeah, it's important. But my point is that certainly interpretations of, no matter how great a teaching, they go through interpretation and reinterpretation and interpretation in support of an agenda, a political one-upmanship, a derivation for some purpose, usually ego. And so we have a lot of egos tangling with the Angikuden. Well, that was never written by Nichiren. Obviously, those aren't his words. He doesn't talk that way. Nowhere else in anything that we've substantiated of his does he say these kinds of things. And another camp says, oh yeah, we know he said these things, and Nico definitely wrote this down, and, so back and forth. What is not only the truth of the matter, I really don't care whose argument wins, but what is the truth in the words, in the teaching? Can we garner any morsels of absolute understanding, regardless of the politics and the egos, that is aimed at, pointed to, in yet more words attributed to Nietzsche's doctrines. Whether it's from Nietzsche's mouth or his disciples' mouth or some random, apocryphal student of Nietzsche who wants to encapsulate his enlightenment, and it marches into the Nietzschean oeuvre by some researcher who says that belongs there. You know, history's funny this way. But this is why Shakyamuni 3,000 years ago said, study all of it. Study all of it. And unless it's really ridiculous, right, there may be something to touch off an insight for a particular person and your practice. And certainly, over time, the truth will out. You've heard me say that several times. So, I think we'll get into this. Should I start from the front of the book or just dive into it? Introduction and preface to the Angikuden. Namu derives from Sanskrit, and here in Japan it is rendered as kimyo, meaning to devote one's life. This means to devote one's life to the person and the law. Now, that may be a translation. There's been hard arguments about the wording and whether or not that wording has been slanted. I would argue right off the bat, and we've talked about this. We've talked in the past in Nietzsche's Go shows. Go shows from the lineage of those same schools. What is Namu? I had a whole video on Namu, a couple of them actually. Na being the dedication of one's openness, and Mu, that receiving through that openness the totality of what is being taught, right? But this says, this means to devote one's life to the person and the law. Hard stop. When did this become? Nietzsche never, ever, ever said this. In fact, Nietzsche many times repeated the words of Shakyamuni Buddha, saying, you do not follow the person, you follow the law. Right? I mean, so right off the bat, dedicate one's life to the person and the law. It's absolutely not, can't be factual. Devotion to the law means devote one's life to the Lotus Sutra. Yeah. Devotion to the person means to devote one's life to Shakyamuni. This is slippery. Because Shakyamuni said, no, don't follow me. Right? So why would this just is wrong? Devotion to one's life means both the physical law of life and the spiritual law of life. Okay, that tracks. Right? Because what is the law? The law is a re-perception of this samsaric existence as the ground from which we experience Buddha-ness. Nothing changes but our perspective, the way we own and disown things. Let's talk about that for a minute. The ultimate principle embodies the oneness of these two, but not the oneness in both sides of it. See, the minute you say both sides of it, that's no longer oneness, is it? So, We can all remember in our lives, and maybe you're going through something like this right now. But certainly there's a period of life as we enter our teens where we become very, very sensitive to what our identity is. This is a samsaric struggle, but that doesn't mean it's not real. And we are still figuring out what we ourselves think of what we ourselves are or represent or think. Our opinions change. And we wrestle with all of that information. And that's why we have problems with our parents, because they represent the old us. And we don't want to be that old us. We want to be ourselves, whatever that is, right? And so when we hear a rumor, oh my gosh, when we hear a rumor, or somebody says something directly to us, it can absolutely destroy us, right? When we're children, the highs and lows are so extreme. And maybe it's you, or maybe it's a friend of yours. We start to use language like, who cares what they think? I don't care what they think. I do what I want. Of course, that's total smokescreen. But it identifies something really critical. And we don't necessarily learn this lesson properly. So in view of Buddhism, let's talk about that. When somebody says something that we take exception to, whatever it is, what we're struggling with is identity and how strongly or tenuously we identify certain aspects of life, things, people, attitudes, opinions, looks, right? Appearances. And how attached we are, how we identify our very self, perception of self, with things. We don't think of it this way, but that's what's happening. And when somebody says, you're this or you're that, or you're to this or you're to that, or you look like this or you look like that, our attachment to these holders of whatever we value them with becomes just magnified, right? Oh, he's a bald old fart. Just hearing that makes me laugh. But I might have a real problem with not having hair, or being old, or a fart for that matter. What does that say about me? Oh my, that's crushing. Well, of course, at 65, I no longer worry about that. I understand that person is experiencing and expressing something of their own tortured experience. Has nothing to do with me. Nothing at all. Except perhaps my influence as a Buddhist, my aura of Myoho Renge Kyo is popping these bubbles of problems that person has in their lives, and their reaction is, he's just an old stupid fart. That actually makes me kind of sad, because they're struggling with something about themselves that seems very confronted simply by my being. But you see how that's completely reversed? When we're children and we're trying to figure out our identities, we don't have that perspective. We just react, right? And sometimes ballistically, people do crazy things that they can't even justify, but that energy that builds, and all you need is a bad friend around going, who does that person think they are, saying that, and that just gives you, yeah, and you get more energy, right? And you go down a very negative path. All because of identifying with things people say, things you think, your own embarrassments, your weaknesses, your strengths being challenged. Don't tell me, I know, right? All of that. It's violent behavior, and it has an energy of its own, and it multiplies, especially through other voices. This is how we get mobs and crazy things happening in society. Nobody's thinking anymore. They're just all reactive bodies. It's like a chain reaction, right? But hopefully, as we get older, back to my point, it's not that we don't care what people think. It's that we care about the people rather than being so tightly identified with what they say, because we feel more solid in ourselves. And so we can experience other people's difficulties as their difficulties rather than owning them. But isn't this the same dialogue we've been having in Buddhism about identification? And when we chant Namo Myo Renge Kyo, we relax that identification. We let it slip away, because the essential that is you and I is Buddha-ness. It's beautiful, it's loving, it's embracing, it's totality. No differences. The differences, if they exist in our perception, are seen as fascination, not confrontation. Do you see? This is why it's so powerful to chant the Daimoku, Myoho Renge Kyo, and to be open and to receive the wisdom of Myoho Renge Kyo is to chant Na Mu Myoho Renge Kyo. This is all there is to it. To keep this mind fresh as we course through the world is extremely powerful, not only for ourselves, but for those in our environment. From friends and relatives to plants and animals, all of it. It's all from the same source, the same energy in different modifications, amalgams, coursing, right? So, kind of testing this video. It's not showing me numbers I'm enjoying. So, I'm going to do a little more research on what in the heck have I done to my system today, just by experimentation, and see if I can't get it back to reasonably solid ground. Anyway, I just wanted to touch base with you guys. Know that your practice is your true identity, and that your environment has no choice but to follow along. It may have little spurts and spats, but try. I know how difficult this is, but try to be less of a reactor and more of an observer, so that you can weigh things out. If something wants to go deeply into you, stop it. Use laughter. It's a great break. Somebody says something that shakes you, laugh immediately. Don't even think about why. And if you have to say anything, say, I'll have to think about that. And then do think about it. That's your meditation. Wow, what karmic electrode did that strike? Because that's in me. They didn't do anything to me. If they did anything to me, I should thank them, because all they did was point out a weakness, something that I'm still identifying with, that I need to let go. Not make it go away, not annihilate it. Let go of my identification with it. Whether it's a way of being, an attitude, an actual thing. You see? And when we say take that to Gohansan, we're not saying put it in a bag, haul it over to your Butsudan and throw it at the mandala. But spiritually, hang on to that question so that you can break apart that karmic energy, that kinetic, that has so much momentum that you still identify with it, and chant it to relax away so that you can have all of the benefit of knowing those different things without reacting to them. Right? We're not trying to destroy ourselves. We're trying to love ourselves. Every aspect of ourselves. And you go, well, I can't love everything about me. There's some things about me. Oh, if you knew. Well, exactly right. We do know, but there's parts of us that we're not sure we want to know, or that we wish we didn't know, or that we think these are bad things about me. Well, those attitudes are exactly what we need to relax, to calm, because those attitudes are the problem. And what is Buddhism about? Attitude and intent. So if you have bad attitudes about yourself, that's the first thing we need to fix, right? Because once you fix your attitudes about yourself, then criticisms from outside of you don't penetrate. They don't make you react because you know better. So this practice, it works in so many ways, internally, externally. But don't complicate it. Just Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Do your Gongyo as best you can. If you're respectful about it, if every time you chant, do daimoku or do recitations, your attitude is, this is amazing, this is important, this is changing my life. Even if your little voices are going, yeah, right. Yeah, shut up, sit still. I'm going to do this. Be respectful. Right? Have those conversations in your head. You are anyway. But what I'm saying is, if your attitude is right, you will accomplish great things with your daimoku and your recitation. Things you're not even prepared for, because so much of you is accustomed to certain things. And when certain things open up that have been there all along, but you've never perceived them until your practice has gotten strong, you'll be shocked because it'll be so unusual. It will amaze you, I promise you. But that's just if you feel any amazement at any point in this practice, know that that is your Buddha nature. It's been there. It's just been kind of squashed. So unsquash it. Let it be what drives you all the time. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. So proud of you guys. This practice is very eventful. It's not always easy, but the rewards are far in excess of any duress you might be experiencing in your practice. Have confidence in that. That confidence alone is what will bring more benefit, more Buddha-ness, more reward body into your life. Okay? And with that, continue to like and subscribe and share. Download the podcasts. Just keep your practice strong. Everything will work based on that attitude, intent. Right? Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. I don't know. Every time I start reading this Ongi Kuden, I see so many problems with it. I understand why there's so much negativity around it. And I don't want to bring negativity in our practice. But at the same time, I don't want to shy away from sources of information that may be helpful. So give me your opinion about it. Should I continue to slog through the Angikuden at least critically so that we can see where, yeah, there's going to be problems with this? And maybe why certain sects staunchly say this when obviously their arguments fall apart with any real analysis. That can be helpful. For some of you, it may be something you need to have researched. So let me know. I want to help you with that. If the rest of you are like, we got enough to study, hundreds of these videos, and I'm going to do more Go Show. So we're going to touch on all of the trickle of information that's in the Angikuden. But I don't want to look like I'm avoiding it too. So please, let me hear your voices, what you think. And I will see you in the next one. Thank you for being here. Be kind. Keep your practice strong, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.